All right, Alan, here we go again with another great episode with another good friend of mine who loves to keep me accountable.
He is totally putting you in check already. And that's why I said just hit record.
Hit record.
He already insulted the podcast.
He did. He goes, yeah, I listened to the podcast and
it's not very good.
That's we heard. And that's why we have Don Markland from Accountability Now on, who was a business coach of mine, and we have stayed friends since. I have not been with him for a little bit, but he's always right there and always been able to help me out a lot. So I'm excited to have Don on. But before we get to Don, I got to tell you what we're doing right after we get done with this podcast, Alan.
You're packing to go to Tahoe. I know.
I'm packing to go to Tahoe, baby. Tahoe and then Napa Valley. 10 days in the beautiful Nevada, California wine countries.
How's self-service out there so you can stay in touch with your business? Right, Don?
Well, no, actually, it's a good point. So business owners really struggle at taking breaks all the time. They think I got to be connected all the time. I got to check in all the time. And if you're doing that, then you're not doing it right. Like if you really want to grow your business, you need to learn how to take a break and recharge and come back and win. And now Chris is doing it wrong. I'm sure he's making mistakes.
Well,
I refuse to give him a compliment.
You remember Harvey Pennick, the golf coach? He said, you just take one aspirin at a time, not the whole bottle. So obviously you told Chris, maybe you should take a little break every now and then. And now he's in Tahoe and then Vegas and then Mexico.
Yeah,
and then
like
Barcelona.
Chris, it should be, hey, maybe you should work once in a while.
Yeah, I
just
think
a
so.
little, but I'm trying. But Don hit on it. You got to be able to get back and recharge, right? Do all that.
What happens when you overcharge your batteries, Don?
You take too much of a break. You take too much time off.
Doesn't that reduce your battery life?
Yeah. Well, you're taking the metaphor to a bizarre level. And so this is, by the way, this is where the podcast goes. You take metaphors to weird levels. But joking aside, I would say taking breaks is super important because it helps your business fuel, but it also, you have so many people in your business that depend on you and you have made them depend on you. And by you stepping away, it gives them the chance to step up and actually perform. And too many entrepreneurs and small business owners rob people of their greatest gift, which is struggle. They rob them of failure because they're like, oh, you don't care about it like I do, and I'm going to jump in and save you, and I'm going to do it my way. Well, you became great because you learned how to suck. You learned how to fail and get back at it. So you going on a break lets them fail and grow and get better.
So here's what I did right before this podcast started is one of my estimators had sold a set of attic stairs that we can't find. I was looking for it and I said, hey, can't do it. And I kicked it back over to my operations manager and he said, I'm on it, sir. I will find it. I'm like, yes, you will. Go struggle and fail for me, big boy. So no, he won't do that. But
that's outstanding.
It was.
I like it.
Yeah, actually, it was good because I was looking for a little bit and I went, screw this. He can do it. He's way better at this than I am. So
Don's saying you have to embrace the suck in order to be great.
That's
let them embrace the suck. Your employees, step to the occasion, and then they feel like they filled in the void, right? They feel good about it.
Yeah, stop going in and thinking you have to protect them from failure. And remember, Chris knows this. Chris was a bad manager his entire life. He's yet to be good.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Okay. But his entrepreneurship skills, like Chris, when you left corporate America and decided to become an entrepreneur, and you had to go through all this failure in order to build it. Sometimes we do this, not only as business leaders, we do this as parents. We don't want to let our kids fail. We want to come in and step for them because we think we're doing them a service when all we're doing is allowing them to be average and then be frustrated when they're average. Let them fail. Let them struggle because it's the greatest gift you're going to give them.
Yeah, failing forward is always a great point to do that. And we do that in sales all the time with our guys. Is that you're out there running a call with them and you're like, nope, I know the answer and I'm not going to let you. He looked at me and like, hey, Chris, any feedback on that? I'm like, no, I really wasn't paying attention, man. Why don't you guys just finish it? I just did it to the guy yesterday. And right. And he was able to, he goes, well, I'm not really sure, but let me get back to you. And he won the job this morning. So pretty cool.
There it is.
Yeah. So Don, you did not start out as a business coach. You have a really great background where you were in the theater, right?
Yes, sir.
And you also, now, did you have entrepreneurial parents? Or how did this whole thing start? Because let's talk a little bit about how you got started and what you do today.
I love that. That's a great question. So
No, it's
I
not done. It is not a great question.
That's right, baby.
I
the
know.
question.
Look, you have to make him feel good, or he'll whine and
Well, there is
complain.
that.
He does pout
Yeah,
too.
so-
Don't forget pouting.
Yeah. This is Chris Management 101, right? So there's a whole group thread that we have on, with people in Atlanta.
Can I get
about
on
this.
that?
Yeah, I'll send you an invite.
All right,
Okay,
I
so
appreciate it.
I was, when I was in college, I was a musical theater major, and I thought for sure I was going to go to Broadway and be the next great big star. And I even had a scholarship to NYU at one point in their voice and musical program. And my wife and I were married at the time. We're still married, but at the time we were very young, married with one son. And I remember I got this scholarship from NYU. And this is back when you got letters, not emails, right? I don't know if you guys can remember that far back. Okay. But so I had this letter.
Papyrus.
I had this scroll that was sent to me from a runner. And my sitting there talking about with my wife, what do we do? And I'll never forget how awesome it was, how supportive she was. She said, look, my fear is not the grind of going to New York and trying to make it. My real fear is I think you're going to make it. And if you make it, right, remember what the life that means. We live in the city, 8 shows a week, this whole lifestyle, bang, 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 bang. And she goes, but I'm going to support you either way. If this is what you want to do, if this is what you think we should take our family towards, let's do it. So she goes to bed, sat there in the kitchen. I'm a religious person, so I prayed. And then I got up and I tore that scholarship and I put it in the garbage and never told them, right? I just tore it up. And then the next morning I changed my major to finance. And that was it. And
that was
it went into business.
But you still were doing musical theater. That was for fun and still as an outlet for you and playing music and stuff. So
very much.
Come out, and what was your first job out of school, or what were those jobs that led up to where you are?
Where you are now. So my very first job, my first big boy job was I was working at a call center.
He is very theatrical.
He is. I know.
We
That's
need
why
to get
it'll be
him
on
to sing.
YouTube.
We've never had anybody sing on our show before. We had somebody playing instruments.
I've actually listened. I've heard him sing because he goes and sings for people in Jacksonville, and they were streaming it, and it was pretty. He's good, man. I'll give it to you.
Yeah, I'm really good. Like, let's not mess around. Okay,
he is.
Like I'm really good. I've done karaoke
kind
in
of
Atlanta,
a big deal,
right? And I've dominated.
You brought down the house at karaoke.
I'm a competitive karaoke. Let's just say that.
I show competitive karaoke, baby.
Like I show up and I watch people sing, and I'm like, I'm gonna beat them. I'm gonna beat them.
I'm gonna bury you.
Yep. So I get this big boy job. It's call centers. I'm doing outbound calls, like gritty credit card sales back in the late 90s.
Brutal.
And after 2 weeks, I was really good. And a job opening came up for a supervisor. And here I was 18 years old, and I applied for it. And I still remember my little buddies around me like, you can't do that. You're 18 years old. You've only been here 2 weeks. Like, you're crazy. And I said, hey, you don't know me. Like, you don't know what I can do. So I applied for it. And I went and met with my boss at the time. Her name was Kim Clegg. She's a big Baltimore Orioles fan. Stupid. Like, what
worst.
What an idiot.
Worst. I know.
Yep. And I met with Kim, and I told her why I was going to be the best call center supervisor in the history of the world, and showed her this whole thing. And she gave me the job. And I was making $6.25 an hour. And I had my own team of 25 reps. And then about 3, maybe 5 months later, we were the #1 team in the site. And the assistant call center manager, like the right-hand person, opened. So I applied for it. And again, all my buddies were like, you're nuts, you're 18, like you haven't even been here a year. And I said, you don't know me. Like, don't tell me what I can't do. And I went and met with Kim again and told her why I was going to be the best right-hand person in the history of the world. Showed her this we didn't have PowerPoint back then. We had like a different thing that we were using to do presentations. And I showed her that. And she gave me the job. And I did that. And we started having awesome shifts. And at that time, I started really reading a lot around John Maxwell. I know you guys know John Maxwell stuff.
Right.
So I was obsessing over leadership, and I was reading Zig Ziglar. I was reading sales leadership and all this stuff. And my team, the whole shift started just accelerating. We became outstanding. And then I turned 19, and an actual call center manager position opened up with this company in Yakima, Washington. So I applied, and even Kim told me, he's like, Don, this is for people in their 30s and 40s. Like, you're 19. And I was like, Kim, you don't know me. Give me a break. And I drove up to Salt Lake City, and I met with Greg Borland, who became one of the great mentors of my life. He's a lieutenant colonel in the military. And I showed him and told him why I was going to be the best call center manager in the history of the world. And he said, I'm going to give you the shot. And at 19 years old, this company, Teleperformance, moved me from Provo, Utah to Yakima, Washington. And their call center, at the time, Teleperformance had 52 call centers, and Yakima was ranked 52nd in profitability and billable hours. And 6 months later, we were number one across the board. We were the number one center in the business. And I was like, I'm going to do this the rest of my life. I was making fat cash. I was making $32,000 a year.
Woo, big. Whoa.
And look at a 19-year-old, like, I was rolling in the dough.
Sure.
And
I gotta ask you, was it just
please.
like you were young and fearless, or you had this theater background? Did you just think of this as a show? I mean, that's a really hard industry. And
yeah, so this is one of the reasons I'm a big fan of the arts, and I encourage people to do it because it gives you fearless confidence. And Chris knows this because we've talked about it. Confidence is an infectious thing that is hard to ignore. Right? You look at the greatest leaders in history, good or bad, they were confident, right? They show up with confidence, and people are like, I don't know what it is. I'm just drawn to this confidence. Here I was, 19, fearless. I was reading, 40 to 50 books a year. I mean, I was obsessed with trying to be better, and I was confident, and I know my theater background helped, but it was kind of a combination of all of it.
Yeah, so coming in with the confidence and getting the team going and then going from 52nd to first. As you were making those steps, what are when you look back on it, what are the things that you felt like you did to help the team get to that point? And that, because that's building that skill later on for being an entrepreneur. So
exactly, 100%. So the first thing I did, and now this was a little scary. It's a great story. You guys will love this. So, 19, super fearless, super cocky, and Yakima, Washington. I didn't learn this until I'd lived there for a while. Had the number one, it had the highest ranking of crime, gang-related crime per capita in the United States. That little city did. Okay.
I thought it was just an apple orchard town.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of apple orchards. There's a lot of picking. There's a lot of, it requires there's a lot of immigrant groups that came up there, which led to gang violence. And I'm not saying that they're all tied to gangs for immigrants, right? I want to keep your show PC. But
that'll be the first time it's been PC.
Yeah,
I know.
They had truckloads of gangs. And so when I showed up, I still remember my first day of the job. They introduced me, and I'm looking over this group of 150 employees that are now my employees. And I'm telling you, half of them at least were gang thug bangers, like staring at me like, who's this white kid from Utah, right? This Mormon kid, right? And so I would walk around fearless. I just started firing them. Hey, I think you're toxic to the behavior of here. It's one strike. And I just literally started like, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. One time I fired this kid Geraldo, and all of a sudden the next day his brother came in. And his brother came in, hey, where's the boss? Where's the boss? And, I'm like, I'm all tough. And Geraldo got in my face, and he was like, nobody fires my family. You better watch your back. And I was putting on a front like, get out of here, man. He leaves, and I'm like crying in the bathroom. I'm so scared.
Oh my God. I'm going to get killed.
And then, no joke, that night I went home to my apartment, and on my car, the next morning when I woke up, on my car was a piece of paper that said, leave town tomorrow.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm 19, right? And I peed an immense amount in my pants. I was just like, oh my gosh. And I called human resource for this company. Teleperformance is a multi-billion-dollar company. They were back then. So I called HR, told them what happened. And this is where my first love of HR came. They said, well, there's nothing we can do.
How helpful.
And I was like, what do you do? Like, what does HR even do? And so I had no choice
That
but to
is
keep
a
on
good
keeping
question.
on. Yeah. So I just kept on, and I thought, I'm doing it right. Be smart, right? Don't be alone in an alley. Like, just, do my thing. And I started going to work really early before anybody got there and staying way late. So like, anyway, we got rid of people that were not contributing to the culture of the business. And by doing that, that allowed me to put people that understood our mission and what my mission was. I was big into Stephen Covey. I still am. So I had my own little team mission statement of what we were going to do. And when we'd interview people, I'd ask them, here's my mission statement. What does it mean to you? And tell me what this means to you. And we only brought in people, I don't want to exaggerate. We tried to only bring in people, we weren't perfect, that supported the mission of what we were trying to do as a sales call center. And it worked.
That's big. We talk about this. What's that phrase? Culture eats strategy for lunch. And you got to build that culture if you want to start to make that change. So you started, because that wasn't a day one fix. You didn't go from 52 to 1 in a day, and a day doesn't make it happen. Obviously there's a lot of work. So the first thing was culture, a mission statement, and then starting to find the right people and get them in the right seats.
Yeah, exactly. The Jim Collins statement, which I didn't learn until years later, of getting the right people in the right seats. And then I was studying so much about sales. We were a sales call center, and I learned that the first real principle of sales is momentum. Okay, you guys are sports guys. Well, you're Atlanta Braves fans, so I don't know if you're sports fans.
Yeah.
Okay,
and who do you follow?
I follow the New York Mets and the Green Bay Packers.
And you're talking about momentum on the Mets?
There it is.
That's a triple A team.
Okay, boy, here it is.
Do they still play baseball?
This is getting salty.
Yeah.
It's getting really salty here.
Yeah.
All right. So let's imagine the Mets had momentum. Go ahead with your story.
So I learned that sales was about momentum more than anything. Like, there's so many techniques to learn. Scripting, yes, you got to have that. You got to have training. I know Chris is big. He and I have aligned on training. You got to train every day. You got to have all these things. But without momentum, it just doesn't matter. And too many times we spend so much time on process and getting the right people and getting all this stuff, making sure they can send invoices correctly. We try, but the sales team never gets momentum. And you guys have seen this in sports. A team that doesn't have momentum, they're losing. Yeah. They're losing to, I've seen in sports, it's such a great example. Great teams lose to horrible teams that they should have never lost to. Georgia's done this many, many times. They've been a great team. They lost to horrible teams. And it was because of momentum. Well, they didn't get out coached. The other team got momentum early. And then they were like, wow, I don't know what to do. And then they just kind of roll over. So
that reminds me of a story when that happened for me. Just real quick. I got to get, so I'm doing Little League baseball with my friend, and we're coaching together. And in Little League baseball, it's rec ball. So everybody has to play so many innings in the infield and so many innings in the outfield. And everybody's got to have a chance to play and do that stuff. And so I was doing that, and I was trying to develop the worst players in the beginning. And we were getting throttled, man. We were getting killed. And my coach came up to me and said, Chris, can we just stack the deck once? These kids need a win. Just let's get them a win. Sure enough, we did it. We go get the win. Then we go back and do a little bit of each, a little bit of this. Next thing you know, boom, 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 boom. Last year we were in last place. This year we won the whole league. And,
there it is.
But it's momentum. Back to your point, even with kids, momentum.
It's human. It's gravity. It's the law of gravity.
Well,
this is a scientific law.
It's a huge thing, and I love this conversation because when you're on a hot streak in sales, you're bulletproof. You know you're going to get the next one, and you can't wait, and you start bragging. And then, our last podcast is like, let's see if we can break a piece of the customer's furniture and still close the deal. But then when the momentum goes dark, it's like, oh my God, how am I ever going to sell this next one? And there's a lot of pressure. How do you fix it? How do you turn it around?
So go back to, I'm not trying to use lame sports metaphors. So I hope you guys can keep up. I use sports references, and I know you don't really know it.
Yeah, can you use more musical theater references? Chris might get this.
So in sport of basketball, this is a principle of coaching in basketball. Okay, yeah. Okay. In basketball, the role of the timeout is a pure usage of momentum. That's all the coach uses it for. So if the opposing team scores 6 in a row or 7 in a row or 8 in a row, that coach knows timeout before this turns into 20 in a row. Let's run a play that we know we can score on, and let's stop this dang thing, right? And that's the role of it. So if I have a sales rep that's gone, in fact, in my sales team now, they have we have it called the 0 for 3 rule. It's called the 0 for rule, 0 for 3. If you go over, you have to speak to me personally, right? Like, you don't take another lead, don't take another call, talk to me. And let's time out. Let's run a play. Let's get the layup. And I did that same thing way back when I was 19 at that call center. I was like, okay, momentum's everything. So if you go over 3, time out, you come meet with me personally. And I mean, I just get them training, I get them focused, get them motivated. Let's get them a hot lead. Like, let's do something that makes this break the run. And momentum changed that call center. It's changed every business. When I do my business coaching, right? The first thing we try to do is like when I was working with Chris, right? The first thing was, let's get revenue up fast. Let's go, and create momentum. Because when there's momentum, the business owner's like, oh, let's go to Athens. Let's do this. Like, we can do anything because I've got momentum.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, the momentum and the breaking of the momentum is another one. I think that's key. When a sales guy's on a heater, it's easy to stay off him. But when he's in that deep, dark spot and coming back saying, I can't, price, it's all price, you got to say time out, right? Stop. We know price is 5th in the list,
That's
man.
right.
So let's get you a win.
So how do you make sure your team has momentum when you're in Napa Valley for 10 days?
I'm not in Napa for 10. I'm in Napa for 4. I was in Tahoe for 6. So total of 10.
That's right. But
so
I mean,
momentum.
he's got, and he's got to have a team, right? He's got to have a team that can do it. He's got to have a team that can do it. And remember what momentum is. And I talked about this with gravity, right? So you all know Indiana Jones, right? So that the big boulder that rolls down, right? The big fancy thing. Once it starts to move a little bit, it's going to get faster and faster and faster as it goes down. All I got to get it to do is move a little bit. That's it. That's the principle of momentum. We think we have to do these big, enormous things. No, just go sell a box of pencils to somebody, right? Like, just get a little movement and that ball's going to roll downhill. And that's how easy it is.
Yeah, it's true, because that's what happens with our sales guys. You can see them when they go in the up and downs, and they all have them. I mean, it's a natural cycle of everything. And when they get in that down spot, man, you cannot tell them that there's a sunshine coming. Don't worry about it. Those aren't all clouds. No. All I can see are clouds. No, don't worry. The sun's behind there. No. This isn't working. And you got to find a way to break that.
I'll give you an example, like what I would do in like larger sales teams that I'm coaching with. We got one guy. He's 0 for 3, 0 for 5, 0 for 7. He's in the dark clouds. Okay, he's a Mets fan. He's miserable. He's really upset. Okay.
Way to take one.
And so now I got to break this. Okay. So let's look. Do I really want to give this guy a lead right now? Probably not. Okay. Right. I want my leads to go to closers. But I got to break the momentum. So I'm going to say, hey, let's say this crappy salesperson, I'm going to make up a name. Let's call him Chris. Okay, let's say this crappy salesperson's Chris. Okay, I'll just pick a random name.
Let's pick one of theirs, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Yep. So Chris, I'm going to say, so how do I get momentum? Remember, I just got to get a little movement, right? So I might say, hey, Chris, man, I'm working with this guy, Tom, over here, and he's really struggling. You want to come watch me you and me watch him do a sale, maybe give him some feedback. Because remember the principle of endorphins. Okay, every time we teach somebody, every time Chris knows this because he's a teacher at heart. Every time we teach somebody something and they go, wow, and you see him learn it, I get an endorphin rush.
Yeah.
And I start to think, man, I know this. So I'm literally manipulating the situation to hack his brain. So I'm going to say, Chris, let's go look at this. Now, we can watch any salesperson, they're going to have gaps. And I'm going to say, Chris, what do you think? What would you do? Like, oh, what I would do is this, I do this, and I do this. And the guy goes, oh my gosh, that's great. Those are good ideas. Boom, momentum. And he didn't close a deal. I just got momentum. And then when I'm walking back with Chris, I say, dude, that's good feedback. You know what you're doing. You know how to close this stuff. Go get it.
Now he's got a belief system back. And now, because, again, the other adage is that a salesman only sells at their lowest level of belief in either the product or the service they're trying to sell. And now he's got the belief, and he's like, wait a minute. Yeah, you know what? I got this stuff.
I do know this.
Yeah.
And I'm using biology to win because I got him to teach, his endorphins will kick on. Doesn't matter who he is. Every single person that teaches, and when somebody acknowledges it, their brain just goes, and they get these little goosebumps. And they're like, I'm the savior. I'm the greatest person in the world. Like, they just feel on top of the world.
Well, it gets you back
Great.
to basics too, back to the blocking and tackling. I mean, some of the best golf I've ever played is right after somebody else says, "Hey, I don't play, but can you show me a few things?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't want to be your teacher, but I'll work you through some drills and stuff." And next thing you know, I'm like, "Oh yeah, maybe I should be doing that." And yeah,
There
you
it
know
is.
what? And then
Maybe it is just backing through.
yeah,
When
Yep.
you actually hit
exactly.
on another one, Don's a big golfer. So that's there you go. You actually hit on an analogy. He's going to pick up on that.
Is that right?
I think
He's
so.
gonna
Yep.
run with it.
Too many times,
Get away from
too
baseball.
too many times we think working with a sales rep means I have to go coach them, I have to teach them. There's so many ways to hack their brain and get them confident. Have them do the teaching, have them teach you, right? Like I might go to a sales rep that's struggling and be like, man, I'm really struggling with my pitch on this thing. You mind giving me some feedback? Let's role play. Like, why do I always have to be the one to teach them? Sometimes my goal is momentum. That's it. That's my goal.
Yeah.
Not making me look good. I don't care. I just want this guy to have momentum. Go sell some crap.
Yeah, exactly right. And when they start teaching each other, and you see the win there, and that's where we are right now with Goody being my sales manager. He is the teacher and the primary guy in the sales side, teaching, and that's key. And it's always great to watch that where he's actually giving good feedback and the team's responding to him. It makes you feel better as an owner.
That's right. That's when you can go to Napa and do those things because you have somebody that's doing that. That's how.
Thank you. All right. So Don, you left the incredibly
Stroking your
fun world
ego.
of call centers, which I remember building call centers back in the day, but these were service centers for banks, and it's a tough environment, and it's closed. It's 8 hours. It's a grind. You were doing outbound sales even harder because you don't get the rush of being in somebody's house, which is fun for us in home services. When did you break out, and why did you end up leaving the call center? Was it burnout? Was it opportunity?
No, no, and no. So we I was with this call center company. I eventually left Teleperformance and joined another one. And I found myself, I was 25 years old. I was the vice president of sales and operations. We were about 7 million in size. And on a lot of things on paper showed I was doing really well, right? I had a good 6-figure salary. I'm at 25 with a great 6-figure salary. I've got my beautiful wife and 3 kids. But I was about 60 pounds heavier than I am now. I was on an airplane 25 times a year, going to all these different call centers. And I started thinking there's got to be a better way to do this. And I still remember sitting in this break room in Rock Falls, Illinois. We just done a big sales training with like 150 reps. And I was sitting in the break room polishing off a chalupa from Taco Bell. I don't know if you've ever had a chalupa from Taco Bell, but it's so freaking good. Right? There's a reason
making me really hungry right now.
All right.
Thanks, and so I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, this can't be what my life is. 60 hours a week, just grinding. And that's when I took out this little notebook that I used to carry around with me that had quotes in it. And I read this quote by a guy named Bob Proctor that said, accountability is the glue that ties commitment to results. And I was like, man, that's cool. And so I sat there and I wrote down the 4 C's of accountability, which was my own personal mantra about how I was going to be more accountable in my life and how I was going to understand accountability from then on. And I took that little mantra and I started to live it first. And as I did, like magic things happened. I lost weight. I started to spend more time at home. My wife liked the thinner me, which was a bonus. That was super great. and my business started to do well. And I started to teach that accountability model to my team. And they started to do well. And this business grew from 7 to 12 to 25 up to 45 million. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm the greatest executive in the history of mankind. I'm a genius. And this is the way I think God works. That sometimes right when we think we've got it all figured out, he reminds us that we don't. And I'm 26 on cloud 9 and my wife gets diagnosed with cancer. And I was like, oh my gosh, like everything changed in an instant. And here we have 3 kids under the age of 6. And look, I don't mind saying this, but I feel bad saying it. I remember being angry with God because I remember thinking, look, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't swear, and you give my wife cancer. I can think of a lot of people that deserve this more than I do. And The next 2 years was tough, but we got through it because of the 4Cs. We got through it because we were accountable to each other and we knew what that meant. And as we came out the other side, I remember telling my wife, I wouldn't wish these 2 years on my worst enemy. And at the same time, I wish everybody could go through this because I have a better relationship with you, with kids, with God. I'm a better father, husband, entrepreneur, executive, brother, manager, cousin, you name it. Everything's better because we went through this. And it was right after that, the president of the company came to me and he's like, Don, I'm going to look and do some philanthropic work. And we had met with the board and we're looking at naming you president. And I'm like, I'm not even 30. I'm going to be president of this company. And then I got this vision of, I'm already traveling 25 times a year. We're going to keep growing. What am I going to travel 50 times a year? Like, this is not for me. And I came back to him and said, I got a better idea. Maybe I walk away. And found my replacement, sold some of my shares back in the business and left and decided we're going to do this different. And that's when I joined a startup, full entrepreneur mode. And I put some money in. I became a co-owner of this business. And this is where I made my first real mistake in business. I joined a business as an owner without looking at the financials.
Oops. All right, here we go.
Yeah, and I jump in, and I remember Bubba was his name. He shows me the financials, and we were losing about $10,000 a month. And I was like, Bubba, like, this is a terrible business. Like, what are we doing? Like, we're losing 10 grand a month. Every hour we're open, we're losing money. And he said, yep, I know. That's why you're here. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. And the next kind of, 5-6 months was awful. We were losing money worse. I was making it worse. And because I was doing every mistake entrepreneurs do, I throw money at it, right? Hire more people, do this and get more. Oh, what do I need? Software. Software will save me. And everything was making it worse. We were an outbound lead generation and marketing agency is what we were doing. And I still remember this moment. I called my wife one day. I had about an hour and a half commute to work every day. And I called her and I was complaining and whining. This job sucks. This business sucks. I should go back to my old job. I could get in a heartbeat. I had a travel budget. I had all this stuff. And now I'm losing our money, our livelihood. Everything is just going down the tubes. And my amazing wife, she's let me go through that. And then she said, are you done whining? And I said, yes. And she said, good. I'm sick of it. Lucky. And this is true as anything. She said these exact words. Lucky for you, I didn't marry a loser.
I like it.
Yeah. She goes, you've been complaining for weeks and I'm tired of it. From
no
now
chalupas
on,
for you.
Yeah. Right. She said, only call me when you have solutions. Only call me when you're going to have something to solve. Otherwise, maybe you are the problem. And then she closed it with, only call me when you're going to talk about the 4Cs. And then she hung up the phone.
Do you think that she got that kind of toughness because of what she went through? Would she have said that if she hadn't gone through that struggle?
That's a great question. I mean, my wife's always been the greatest person I've ever known from day one. Of course, I mean, she fell in love with me, so she's obviously great. But she's incredible. She's always been incredible. She's always been ambitious. She had been a senior executive for a company in Utah. She was more successful than I was earlier on. And so she always had grit for sure. But crisis illustrates our true character, doesn't create it, right? Crisis exposes what was already there and makes it bigger. And so I think, sure, she was grittier, right? The sandpaper had made her skin tougher, but I would say she's always been the toughest woman I've ever met.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned the 4Cs twice. Do we have to pay you to get the 4Cs or can you tell us?
No, that's another thing in business. What I tell entrepreneurs all the time is give it away for free because they're not going to follow it anyway. They'll hire you, right? Give it all away for free because guess what? They don't have the discipline to do it, right? So give it all away and they'll be so intrigued and they'll fail 100 times and they'll come back to you. Personal weight loss and fitness proves this. You think there's not, weight loss programs for free online? There's thousands of them. But why? Why would you ever hire a personal trainer? Because you're never going to follow it.
Never going to follow it.
Never in a million years. So 4Cs are really easy. And this will be really impactful and I'm sure it'll change your lives forever.
God, I
The
better get ready.
first, yeah. So the first thing before we get to the exact 4Cs is we have to cover the 2 rules, because we all have a misunderstanding of what accountability is. We think accountability is always associated with negative consequence. And you both already do this and you don't even realize it. When somebody screws up, you tell your sales manager, you need to hold them accountable.
That's
You
right.
need to hold
It's a
them
negative.
accountable.
It's a negative word.
We only bring it up on the mistake. And accountability is associated with all of your choices.
Yep.
I want you to be accountable for your wins just as much as your losses. The fact that Chris has taken a break, I want to hold him accountable. Chris, great job. It was awesome. Right? When a salesperson crushes it, I'm going to pull them off and say, hey, you followed these 3 techniques. Great job. Like, that's exactly what I want. I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to say that word. I want their brain to associate it with the right behaviors, not just when I screw up. Because we all do that, and we do it to ourselves more than anything. We just crush ourselves when we make a mistake. But then when you do it right, you do this, I'm being humble. No, it just, it was somebody else. I had guidance. Just stop that. Tell yourself, man, I kicked freaking ass at that. Like, I was awesome that I made those decisions and I feel better about it. That's not being cocky. You're holding yourself accountable.
It's hard to do. When Don was working with me, we talked about this word. I was actually trying to make this the word of the year for my company, but it's got such a negative connotation. You really got to put that in your culture to get it going. So we do talk about that now. We celebrate the wins, and we don't say the word accountable, but we definitely celebrate the wins and we celebrate the losses. Hey, you know what? That was a good loss. That's all right.
All right. So what's the C word? Did I miss it?
No. So I haven't. So that's just our definition, and the 2 rules are really quick. The first rule is accountability always starts with me. We don't walk into a room and point at other people. We realize we contribute to our own future more than anything else. And so
I wanted to ask you about that, because the way you were describing it, it seemed like you were holding yourself accountable. Whereas when I think of accountability, I think of accountability partners. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it always starts with yourself. Always. Okay. I contributed to that. I made that. I contributed. Okay. And the second thing is there's no room for egos. Anyone can hold you accountable. And I use a little simple metaphor, right? So let's say there's a baseball game. And if a pitcher throws a pitch and it's a swing and a miss, that's a strike. And it doesn't matter if the umpire calls it a strike, or the opposing player calls it a strike, or a fan in the stands calls it a strike. You swung and you missed, it's a strike. But we spend all this energy when somebody calls us out on something of, hey, it's not your job to tell me where I screwed up. Or we'll say things like, well, yeah, but will you do it too? Who gives a freaking crap that they do it too? Of course they do. Right? That means they're an expert at it. It didn't mean you didn't screw up. Get over it. Okay. Drop the ego. Anyone can hold you accountable, from your spouse to your kids, to your lowest level ranking employee, to a stranger on the street. And get over yourself. You aren't above it. Those are the 2 rules.
I know it. Trust me, I have a lot of that. Yeah. All right.
And now the 4 C's are really easy.
Okay.
First one is critique success. We do it better every time. Whenever we win, before we break our wrist, patting ourselves on the back, we stop and say, how could it have been better? How could we do this better? Okay, that's our first discussion. Second one is we correct failure. Chris knows this because he's really big on this. We don't punish mistakes. We correct them. If somebody makes a mistake, he already talked about it, we're going to celebrate it. We're going to tell the team, awesome job, you had a huge mistake, and let's break it down. Oh, you made that assumption based on this data, and now can you see how that was a little rash and a little wrong? Okay, fix that. Go left, not right, and everything's fine. Okay, right? If Marty McFly and Doc Brown had just tore up the book or burned it, then Biff Tannen would have never gone back in time and created the whole second movie. Correct the mistake. That's it. Okay?
There you go.
Little pop culture reference.
Love it.
Then,
yep. I was digging it. I was in.
Yep. Then third one is celebrate growth. Hardest thing we do in this life is grow and make that choice. When you're in the weight room, it's the 13th rep. It's push until you fail. It's extra weight on the bar, right? Too many times we think we're doing work and growing when all we're doing is just going to where we're discomfort, and then we stop. And there's a David Goggins quote where he says, there's no growth in the comfort zone.
That's right.
And that's what this is about. Yep. You got to grow. You got to grow. And when you do, that's when you throw your parties. That's when you celebrate. That's when you sit back and say, man, I went on a sales call and I knocked the door and then I wasn't ready for that. And I did great. All right. Celebrate the growth, not success. People ask me all the time, Don, why would you celebrate growth and not success? And I believe God sent all of us here to be successful. That's why we were sent here. Doesn't mean we're all sent here to be billionaires, but success is what you define success as. And we were all sent here to be successful. So why would I celebrate you meeting expectations?
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. You're meeting your potential. And when you start to celebrate expectations, it creates entitlement. So I'm expecting you to be successful. Great job. Okay. But what I'm going to celebrate is the growth to get there. The hard things. That's where I'm going to celebrate like crazy. That's the third C. And then the fourth one is my favorite. It's called crush mediocrity. In Florida, and I know in Atlanta, we have enormous bugs. And I don't care how clean your house is. You've got big old bugs that love to hang out. And when a cockroach comes running around, we've got this thing in our house called the lonely flip-flop. It's somewhere it lost its partner and it's just hanging out. And we use that to get rid of these bugs. And when you see, I don't know if you guys have ever done this, you see a cockroach and you smack it. If you don't hit it hard, that cockroach is going to laugh at you and then go call all of his friends and be like, man, Don's a wuss. Come on over. We've got the run of the place. You have to crush it with everything you've got. And that's what we do with mediocrity. When you find it, be violent, be upset, and crush it and move on.
That's good stuff. C's. Yep. We've been talking about it. That's good stuff. You've been working with companies. So you're out of the call center, you still are a partner in businesses, but you're also doing coaching. Let's talk a little bit before we go into our final four questions, a little bit more about your coaching program and how people can find you and what you've been doing with some of these companies.
Yeah. So our business, right? We are Accountability Now is we were recognized last year as Inc.com, one of their top 5 management consulting companies in the country for our work.
Congratulations.
Yep. And that was a big win for us. We just won another marketing award with a company called ClickFunnels that we just won. Our program is very different than just traditional coaching or traditional consulting. We follow what I call the player coach model. Player coach model is many coaches want to sit on the sidelines and remind you of all the problems you already knew existed. Well, thanks for helping. Okay. I already know I suck. Okay. And consultants will sometimes want to charge these exorbitant fees to come in and do slow paced work. Well, we don't. We do a player coach model, which means we're going to work with our clients. Everything is month to month. We never sign a long-term contract ever, which means the risk is always on us to perform. You, again, a sports metaphor, guys in their free agent year outperform, right, like crazy. So we put that on us. Like, hey, we got to deliver every single day, no matter what. We could lose the account. And we're player coaches. At times, I'm going to sit with the CEO and say, you're the problem, and let's fix that. And then at other times, I'm going to say, hey, let's jump in. Let's solve it. Let's come up. Let's do strategy. Let's do training. Let's train your team. Let's design the process. And we will jump in and get our hands dirty. And it's been great. We have 71 clients right now in 7 countries. And we're having our best year we've ever had as a business. And it's been outstanding.
How many weeks a year are you on the road now?
I don't travel. I have a current engagement that's a pretty great engagement that puts me traveling during the summer 1 week a month. And then outside of that, I probably travel, I don't know, 15 times a year, maybe. Right. And
but most of the time, different virtual. Yeah.
Yeah. Most of the time it's almost always virtual.
Yeah.
And I'm in a different season. Back in the early days of my career, we had little kids. And now my wife works in the business, right? She's got her own portfolio of clients. And her primary specialty is medical. And she does a lot of stuff in the any medical practices, things. She works with them. And she's outstanding. She's the smartest and toughest person I know.
That's awesome. So Accountability Now, that's how you can find them.
Accountabilitynow.net. You can find me at accountabilitynow.net. We do a lot on Instagram, executivecoach.don. And I do want to say people should read your book, right? Like when I
look
first
at
started
Chris Beam.
Doug, and
thank
I
you.
mean this though, but when
Uh-oh.
Oh no, he
when I was doing
froze.
that first business, and when I was failing out and all that stuff. Oh, did I freeze? Can you
You
hear me?
did
Yeah,
right
yeah.
when you're
Right
about
when
to say
you're
why
about-
it's a good part.
Yeah,
of
you
the
were going to
book.
gush on
Yeah.
Chris's
You-
book,
you
and
did
then
it.
we
So-
had the
Yeah.
universe
Yeah.
just said,
Yeah.
no, we can't
No.
stroke Chris's
No.
ego
No,
anymore.
Chris needs
But-
stroking.
When I started that first business and we were failing, there was no podcasts. There wasn't, right? You know how I got help was I started calling people like, dude, tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. Right. And if there had been a show like this where I could have said, and listened to insights and listened to things that other people are doing, like, holy cow, that would have helped. And Chris's book really simplifies it. I mean, it's kind of a dumb fashion, right? So anybody can read it.
Yeah,
Right.
I did.
small words, big pictures.
That's exactly
Yeah.
what I went for, guys.
But
Not lying.
my point is, I mean, we were trying to read Jim Collins. We were trying to read stuff that was, super high level. And we're like, we're not a Fortune 500 company. Like, what the heck? We've got 10 employees. And so I appreciate the work that you do. People don't realize the work that goes into putting on a podcast, even as crappy as this one. And there's so much work behind it. And it's really a value to the entrepreneurship community. And I think that's cool.
Yeah, man. No, it's been great. Yeah, actually, just got a phone with the guy 2 days ago who because I put it out there. Anybody wants to talk to me, you can. Hit me up on email, and I'll give you 30 minutes, and we'll just chat. Again, put it out there for free, and I did. I talked to this guy. He's thinking about starting his own handyman company in Spokane, Washington. And he asked the question. He goes, Chris, do you think I'm crazy? I'm like, oh yeah, of course, 100%. I said, no, you just got to figure out if it's the right crazy for you, man. I said, because it's this crazy hard world that you get into, and we talked through it a little bit, and he actually had listened to the podcast, and I said, you got to have some interesting questions. Make me answer some pointed questions, and he did. He said, I got my 3 questions for you because I only have 30 minutes, so that's pretty cool.
Good for
So there you go. I was a mini coach for 30 minutes. So anyway,
awesome.
but no, we have the man coach on today, Don, who has helped me out quite a bit as we put the 10 for 2 program in at the Trusted Toolbox, and we're still striving for it and going after it, and it's galvanizing the team. So at the Toolbox, we have appreciated what Don has done for us, but now we have to go to our final 4 questions as we bring it to a close. So you brought up a lot of books, and you've read a lot of books, and I'm well aware of that. What is one book now you would give out to our audience looking to start a business, looking to scale a business, but just a book?
Yep. I'm a big reader. I read, somewhere between 60 and 80 books a year. Right. But I reread every May, the 10X Rule by Grant Cardone, every May 1st. And the reason why is, look, that's heavy sales, heavy entrepreneurship, heavy mindset. And the reason why is because you set your big goals in January, you get your word of the year, you get all this stuff, and then you get to the end of April and you're like, man, I'm tired. What the freak am I working on? Like, I'm so exhausted. And so every May 1st, I read it again. And I just realized, holy crap, I have so much more I can do. Let's go.
That's a great
And
one too. That's a
Yep,
great time frame to do it into.
Yep. And I've done that probably 15 years. I've reread that book May 1st every year.
Solid. All right. Here we go. Now on to the next 3
Why don't
questions.
you incorporate my question into the 3? I mean, they're 4 questions. You don't
I
have to
said-
separate them.
I said 4. Now we have 3 left.
And you're like, okay, now we're going to get to the 3 that are important.
What's the favorite feature of your house, Don?
My favorite feature of my house, where we put in a pool. It took a year and a half to get the pool in place. Chris and I remember they were just starting down that path, and they cut a pipe, and we were chatting on a call, and he's like, did they do this? He went right into like work mode on it. And so there was just nothing like sitting out there at the pool with my kids, and I just love it. That's what I love.
That's awesome. Love that. That's a good one. Okay, when you're out there in the world and we're getting customer service, things are out there in the world because we are customer service
Freaks.
We want to know, what is a customer service pet peeve of yours?
When you're the customer.
Yeah. So customer service is about creating magical experiences. That's all it is. Just create magic. It's all I want you to do is create magic. You don't have to solve my dang problem. Just create magic. Make it feel good. Right? Because remember, magic's not real. It's never real. But we love it because of the way it makes us feel. So customer service sometimes thinks I just got to get right to the problem or got to solve it. Wrong. Make it magical. Just create magic. And then, because there's a lot of times you can't solve it. Sometimes you got to tell the customer, like, it is what it is. I don't know what to tell you, right? But if I can make it magical, doesn't matter if it's real. You're going to walk away remember it. And when they don't make it magical, they just kind of, even when they solve my problem right away. That's why I like to call Disney with a problem, because Disney's going to make it magical. And I love that.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that too. It's again, because we all know that's how you feel at the end of that transaction, not the data that came out of it. All right, last thing. Give us a DIY nightmare story that did not involve those guys cutting your sprinkler.
Yeah, this is a DI. This one's great. So my wife loves to know, and they joke around about it, that I'm the least handy person in the world. And so we've got our house, we've got an upstairs part of our house and stuff like that. And I see on Amazon Prime Day, it's Prime Day right now, but it was Prime Day years ago. It was like 6 years ago. These little outlets that had USBs in them. And I'm like, I'm going to install USB outlets in our whole house.
Genius.
So I order 2 of them, and I tell my wife, I'm going to put these through the whole house. And she's like hell you are, right? You're a mess. And I was like, no, trust me. I watched a YouTube video. I'm going to do this. She goes, why don't you start upstairs? So I go upstairs. Now you guys do this stuff all the time. How long should that have taken?
I'd say an hour for an amateur in the beginning. Yeah, to do the 2. I would give you an hour.
Okay. So no, I'm not exaggerating. 4 hours later, our power was out in the whole house. We had no power at all, and we're freaking out. And I have no idea what to do. Like it is gone. I have no idea. Nothing's installed. I got cords hanging out of a wall. I got crazy stuff. We had to call an electrician. He came for about an hour, and he was saying, like, why were you twisting these? What were you doing? I'm like, the YouTube video, I swear, said to do all of this.
The YouTube video said white goes to black. Green goes to black.
Yep. And so they came, and he was there about an hour. He got it fixed, and he goes, do you want me to install these? And I said, no, throw them away. We're done. We're banning all together. And that's what it was. And they bring it up all the time. Like when I get a little like, I'm going to do a DIY thing. Don, do you remember the outlets? Like, you're right. We're going to call somebody.
It's like, remember the Titans, remember the outlets, Don. Remember the outlets. Oh, go away. Right. Go away.
Yeah. So
yeah, this has been awesome. I'd tell you, we've talked about this on other podcasts. That when do you need a coach? When do you want to get a coach? It just depends on where you are. I've used a couple of coaches throughout my 15 years doing it, and Don has been the one I've used most recently, who helped. And so I think a big question a lot of people ask themselves is, when should I get a coach? When shouldn't I get a coach? And I would answer for Don is that when you're ready, it's time to at least find out. But don't just follow somebody and just because you found them on Instagram. Get to know the guys, get to understand who they are, and can they really help you? And that's where Don was a great fit for me at the time. I was looking for this kind of coaching from him to help me really accelerate my growth in my company. So as you go to grow and get your company going, you got to make sure you're looking for the right people to help you, but you got to keep rolling it, right?
Yeah. And it's really interesting to me because not too long ago, Don was talking about, and I'm talking to the CEO, and if they're the problem, then I tell them they're the problem. And we just had a coach not too many episodes ago who wouldn't have done that unless they got permission to. And I kind of have a feeling Don would have just told you. So there's a huge difference in styles of coaches. Do you want somebody who's in your face, tell you like it is, or do you want somebody who's more of a therapist?
Yeah. Well, and I'll say 2 quick things. I know we're running along here, but 2 quick things to remember on that. One is remember the law of entropy. This is a scientific law. The law of entropy is anything left unto itself is in a constant state of decay. Okay, that is true as anything. Those shirts you're wearing, they're constantly getting older, right? Everything we have is in a constant state of decay when it's left unto itself, including our ability to be successful. And I would tell everyone, if you don't have a coach, then how are you getting better? You think you're that good? You're the one entrepreneur. Every great successful entrepreneur in the last 50 years has had a coach, and you just think you're the one that doesn't need them, or is that your ego telling you that? Right. And so every great athlete, every great actor, every single one has had somebody they go to that coaches them. But you're apparently better than Tiger Woods. You're apparently the one that doesn't need a coach. Good for you, because you're full of crap, right? You're full of crap. Everyone needs a coach.
That's right.
There are
if you're a great quarterback in high school, you have one coach. You may have 2. You may have a quarterback's coach. You go to college, you immediately pick up a strength and conditioning coach, a quarterback's coach, an offensive coordinator, and then you get to, by the time you get into the pros, you got all kinds. You got nutrition coach, you got everything, mindset coaches.
Yeah. Think about Wemby, the number 1 draft pick for the Spurs, right? You know how many people he's probably got around him coaching him now? right? Like to help him as opposed to where he was at.
Yeah.
But for some reason, business owners, entrepreneurs, they think, well, I got it. I'm good. I'm the one person that doesn't need help.
I know
Well,
so
you're a
many of those
liar.
guys too. That's exactly
Yeah.
right.
And so always, always, always have a coach. Always. And make sure it fits your budget. Make sure it fits your style. Okay. Make sure it's somebody that's pushing you into uncomfort zone. Make sure. And if they're not, then they're not a coach. They're just a friend. Right. You don't need to hire a friend. You need to hire somebody that'll tell you, hey, put more weight on the bar. I think you could take the business to 10 million. I think you're wrong. We got to go to 10 million and let's go.
Let's do it.
That's what you need.
You can do it too, everybody. Take us, and I hope you guys got some good stuff on this one. Go check out the show notes. Go out there, man, and just do me a favor. I just asked 2 of my good friends to go out there after they told me, hey, I really liked your podcast. I said, can you go out there and give me a review? I just went and checked yesterday. You know what? No,
they didn't do it.
No, you know what? They're off my friend list. They're gone. No, I'm kidding. But
Slash
you go out
their
there.
tires.
You go out there and you give me a good review, and I'll become your friend. All right, Don. Thanks so much for taking time out of your very busy day. We enjoyed it, and I hope everybody else got a lot out of this one because I know I sure did. I got a page full of notes. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, Don. Cheers.
Out of here.